Hello guys, this is Goodlike, and this is another Dark Souls 3 extra video already. This is crazy, right? How can a game be so annoying and bad? Okay, maybe it's not. I am determined to be like the giver of the doubt. This weekend to me has been a roller coaster. Unforeseen roller coaster that I've never truly experienced before. So it started with me, I want to play Dark Souls 3. It ended with me, the first day, it ended with me just being, holy shit, this game sucks. But I'll try my hardest. Then the other days I'm like, let's give it our best shot. And 2 hours later, oh my god, this is the worst game I've ever played. And now I'm like kinda, okay. It's probably shit, but maybe not that shit. Who knows? Okay, so what has happened since the last time? Okay, since the last time I've not reviewed the footage too much, just a little. I still haven't changed my opinion about the stupid, I believe his name is Boreal Knight. Being stupid, it's just super aggressive enemy, but I've understood exactly why it is stupid. At first I thought it was his aggressiveness that was just incredibly bad, and it is, but the problem isn't his aggressiveness, the problem is actually the room he is in, and its deceptive nature. So the room the knight is in contains numerous pillars, and if you've ever played against aggressive enemies who just keep charging you, you'd think, okay, so the logic is here. He's gonna charge at me, and I will use these pillars to my advantage to make him kind of get stuck and get some pot shots at him. So two problems with that strategy. First of all, he's too aggressive. Even if he would get stuck on a fucking pillar, by the time you would get to him to actually give a strike, he would be back from being stuck in the pillar. Maybe if the pillars completely block the attack like the ones in Ortste and Smo, I think they completely block the attack even if you're pretty close. Then you could do something, kinda, let's say Smo phase 2, kinda like that. But they don't. I'm pretty sure these pillars don't actually block the attack, because previously we had an encounter with one of the parasite monsters that grew out of ahead of an enemy that I never truly fought. I just fought it a bit once and it then fell off and died. It was back in the high wall area on the rooftops. And at one point I was standing behind a huge wall just to see, okay, maybe he won't be able to hit me. He was able to hit me. But it's not 100% clear because the wall wasn't, completely blocking his view. It was just something the enemy faced through. But I wouldn't be surprised if those pillars are ineffective in blocking actual attacks. But secondarily, it doesn't even matter if the pillars block attacks or not, because this enemy dances around the pillars. Like, if I remember correctly, and I do believe I do, I've tried hiding behind pillars, but if he does certain charging attacks, it doesn't matter. He just goes right around the pillar. Like it's not even there. Magic. Truly beautiful, isn't it? It's fucking shit. And, this is stupid. Like, why is it even in such a ridiculous way? Pillars and aggressive enemies are a perfect combination. In fact, one of my most hated bosses in Dark Souls 2, the Throne Watchers, which I hate because they're just shit boss. I hate them because of the lost potential. They're like two bosses and they're all like, oh, it's Ornstein and Smo of this game. And then you realize, no, it's not. So that's why I really hate them. They literally sucked the last drop of joy I could have possibly had with Dark Souls 2. That was the boss that did it. And you can clearly see if you watched the second to last video of Dark Souls 2 in my Let's Play how that happens. And one of my ideas was immediately just put some pillars in the fucking room and make them more aggressive. And I stand by my statement that would make it an infinitely better fight, assuming that the pillars work the same way as in Orson and Smoke, where they actually prevent the enemy from doing something, not just prevent you from doing something. These pillars are there to interfere with you. That's the reason why I kited him, the Boreal Knight, out of the room in the first place. Because I didn't want to get stuck on a pillar. I still got stuck on a fucking staircase, but that's besides the point. It was still better. Obviously, the final time I actually went in and defeated him because I decided to change up my strategy, and because I realized that my initial strategy against the Boreal Knight was I will try to avoid as much as possible and look for openings. Like, I'm not really trying to kill him, more so trying to understand when am I supposed to hit him. And it became immediately obvious that pretty much never, because he has like stamina regeneration of gods and can spam his attacks like crazy. But one thing I completely noticed was that standing away from him wasn't actually beneficial ultimately, because he would just use a stupid charge attack which forced the complete dodge away that changed the perspective. Because it was the double slash. He jumps forward, slashes twice. Even if you dodge the first one, if you didn't get out of the way, you will get hit by the second one. They just timed that way, so it sucks. And the worst thing about it is that because of how much turning around and everything that causes, it makes it really difficult to then realign yourself in such a way that you can see the enemy and then have an opening of that. That's why I said that locking on probably would have made him a bitch, because more than likely if I could lock on, I could have dodged that attack in such a way that I would have avoided it and had an opening. And then it's just a matter of forcing him to use that attack as much as possible, which is trivial in the second room, because he uses it very often. Of course, this is just speculation on my side. Or was speculation on my side until I watched other people play the game, because I decided, you know, I need some reference from my experience. I can't just keep going blind at this and keep claiming certain things are for a certain way for a certain reason without at least seeing another perspective. And my perspective has shown, yeah, probably the game would be infinitely easier if I just locked on. There was a similar sentiment that people expressed in Dark Souls 2, where people would be upset that I wouldn't lock on. But I disagree with that sentiment. I think that there are parts in Dark Souls 2 where locking on is very good. It is very helpful, and it makes the game a lot easier, but it's not the cure for all problems. It's not as good as you would think. In Dark Souls 3, I think that is literally the cure to all problems, because every enemy is on steroids. That's literally the game. Dark Souls 3 should be renamed Steroid Souls. There we go. Or Dark Steroids. But that kind of is confusing. I don't think people will understand what that means. So, Steroid Souls. That's the real name of this game. I went back to look at the footage of Dark Souls 1. Of me playing Dark Souls 1 pretty much for the first time. And I picked a few key areas, like towards the end of the game, because I've been saying how I would prefer Black Knights to be my enemies than the enemies I'm facing in this fucking game, in terms of difficulty, that they would be easier to deal with. And I stand by that statement completely and utterly. I looked up, like, the very fucking end of a game, you know, the Kiln of the First Flame, where I go with, like, Cavill set and shit equipped, super massive health bar and everything, and I just parried the enemies to death, basically, there. Not every single parry goes well, but the attacks are so painfully slow compared to what you see in Dark Souls 3 that I question why I would have ever even considered Dark Souls 1 parries to be remarkably difficult in any way, shape, or form ever. Which, to be honest, I don't think I ever truly did. I don't know. I never thought of parries in Dark Souls 1 to be that good. But evidently they clearly are. If you look and compared to, let's say, Dark Souls 3, where the enemies just fucking whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. It's crazy. It's like, what the fuck am I even looking at? And that's comparing like 30 frames per second footage with 60 frames per second footage. So it should be even more skewed towards, the Dark Souls 3 side, but it's not. That's the crazy thing. So the other place where I looked at was Anor Londo Knights, the White Knights or whatever. They're kind of like Silver Knights. That's the one. And same thing. But what really stood out for me on those nights was the fact that they had about 400 health. Just let that sink in for a moment. These are enemies that are middle of the game, middle of the road game, pretty much around the middle. They are supposed to be trash fodder for Ornstein and Smo. For Ornstein and Smo, they are the trash mobs. And they're weaker, slower, and easier than random fucking knights you meet in the first area of Dark Souls 3 game. It's no wonder I'm having so much trouble without locking on. Because, yeah, I could easily, well, not easily, but I could run around circles around the Silver Knights without locking on because they weren't as fast. Didn't have as much tracking, especially when attacking. And, yeah, it wasn't trivial because they had a tendency to quickly turn around after they're done with attack, so you had to really time it well. Anyway, it wasn't trivial without locking on. I'm not sure. It probably be really easy with locking on, but who gives a shit about that? I don't care. I didn't play with it. I'm just shaking my head looking at this and I'm like, and you have the audacity to come to me or anyone else and say this is an easier game when it puts enemies literally harder than ones in the middle of the game before the hardest of the boss is trash mobs into the first level of their game. I mean, shit. Like the second level of the game, the undead ghetto or whatever it's called, has the fucking wizard dudes that are even more difficult. Like, they fucking almost two-shot me, if not straight up two-shot me. And I don't even. Like, what the fuck? So yeah, it's way harder game. I have no idea why you would have the opinion that this game is easy unless locking on has some special strats that make it super easy, but then it's just the locking on that's making it easy. You scrubs playing with lock on? No wonder you shitting on the game's difficulty, assholes. Try playing without lock on, like the real players do. He says as he fucking practically almost quit the game in the last session because it was too fucking annoying. And yeah, the thing that really triggered me in a non-ironic sense and made me realize just how much this is like Dark Souls 2 was the ridiculous jump attack that tracks. I can think of one enemy the jump attack tracks in a meaningful way in Dark Souls 1, and that is the Capra Demon. But here's the difference with the Capra Demon. He is fucking slow as shit. He can attack like once every 10 seconds or something. Probably an exaggeration, but he can trivially be blocked with a half-decent shield. And he's a huge fucking demon that attacks with 2 machetes. And everybody still hates him. I can't think of anyone who's been like, oh yeah, Capra Demon, that's one of the best Dark Souls 1 boss designs ever. Those dogs truly added the difficulty that the boss fight otherwise would lack. Nobody says that. I have never heard or seen someone say that. And anyone who would say that would probably do so in an ironic sense, not in an actual sense, just like I now did. So, that's a bad thing. We don't want that in our Dark Souls game, and yet we have this motherfucker with a machete doing jump attacks and destroying my shield, although my shield is pretty shit, so I'll give it that much. Yeah, and tracking me like crazy. Yeah, that's the other thing. He doesn't actually track like crazy. He only tracks a certain degree. up to like, I don't know how many degrees, but around 100 maybe. Whereas I've seen jumping attacks go almost 180. And the way this jumping attack looked, it looked like exactly the same. And I have no doubts that if I managed to get a dodge in the right direction, it would go straight up, whoop, around and would land right on my face because I had the audacity of dodge rolling, in order to just give myself a better positional advantage. That's I think my problem with Dark Souls 2 and 3, that like you could, if you were to distill it even further beyond, one big problem that I have is that a lot of the mechanics just lose their depth. Yeah, you have a dodge roll, but it's not a way to move around. It's just something you use at a specific time to avoid an attack, which isn't what I use it for. It's also a way to trigger a different attack animation. It's also a way to move probably slightly faster and in a certain way that would otherwise maybe be impossible. It's just all those things, but in Dark Souls 2 and 3, it's really just a dodge that you have to time to attack. That's all its purpose is. It has no other purpose. Using it for any other purpose punishes you. Because you dodge too soon, it tracks into your fucking dodge. Which means you can't dodge when you want for all these other tools. Except for very rare situations where maybe you're just starting the fight and you're running into the enemy. I've noticed a lot of people in comments of various videos about Dark Souls 3, because I looked up a few, talk about how this difficulty is important or how it's nicer than in other games, but they fail to understand that, for one, I don't think it's ever was about a difficulty. And even if that's what you prefer, that still doesn't change the fact that the rest of Dark Souls mechanics are present and they clash with this difficulty. They clash specifically by making the game, they make it a drudge to go through. In the worst of senses. And again, people have said that Dark Souls 1 is repetitive, like you die. You have to go back. But the whole point was that even though that is the case, the actual distance you have to make, even with these massive spaces between bonfires, which by the way are very clear and obvious where they are most of the time, you can make it efficient. Because there isn't some kind of just, usually linear path. It's more open. There's usually something maybe you can jump down to. Maybe some ladder you can slide down or something like that. Maybe some enemies you can skip, etc., etc., etc. Maybe a ring you can wear to run through water faster. Or poisonous swamp. But the point is, there's things you can do more efficiently in order to speed things up. And I don't feel that at all from Dark Souls 3. I almost felt it in Dark Souls 2, but I disagree with it due to the mechanic of killing monsters over and over. You can technically make a level more efficient by killing monsters enough so they stop respawning, so then it's just a run through instead of having to navigate the monsters that may otherwise be extremely difficult, annoying, or maybe even impossible to avoid. And Dark Souls 3 doesn't have that, to my knowledge. At least all the reports I've seen say that you can kill monsters as much as you want, they won't go away. Yet there's still as many of them, they're still as annoyingly placed, and they still have all these annoying, shitty mechanics. Shit, man. Shit. That's why I had this notion that it is possible for Dark Souls 3 to be worse than Dark Souls 2, because it would have taken all these bad things, but then also taken away the few saving graces, which in of themselves were shit. But at least they held together the shit. Now it's just it's not even being held together. But again, just like I said at the end of the last episode, if I remember correctly, I might just have stumbled upon a bad place, a bad time, a irregular situation that potentially won't continue. Maybe this fucking Boreal Knight, of which I read up on the wiki, are 3 of them. I don't know where else they will be, but there's 3 of them. So there's 2 more. Oh no, but whatever. Maybe it's just this kind of one-off thing that pissed me off and won't happen that much. Maybe this area with these fucking screaming things is annoying, but maybe if I just arrow down the screaming things, it will be fine. Who knows? Nobody... Oh no, actually probably a lot of people know. I don't know, but I will know soon, because I always do these recordings before I start a new session. So, I've cooled down a bit, I've laid out the cards on the table, my feelings, my observations, and I'm going back into the fray, and if somehow this still pisses me off after all of this, after all my effort to reconcile and understand what is going on, I'm afraid there is no saving for Dark Souls 3. So, this is my last effort to make something good out of it. And no, I'm still not going to lock on, because the moment I lock on, I will no longer consider that game a Dark Souls game, so don't even suggest it. That would be the same as suggesting, why don't you just delete the game if you hate it so much? That's the same level of suggestion to me. To me, locking on non-accidentally is basically the same as deleting the game. Alright, without further ado, thank you guys for watching, and I will now go and die again. Yay!